So right now I'm in our back garden. I might be a little winded, I was broad forking, so I might need to catch my breath a little bit. So excuse me if I sound like I'm gasping for air. It's just my daily exercise right now. So what I'm doing, for those of you who know what this is, I guess I don't have to say what it is, but for those who haven't seen what this is a broad fork. And we got that a couple years ago, around the time that we were putting compost on our beds with our skid steer. We were driving, kind of straddling the beds, and we were putting compost down with the bucket as we drove over. And it saved a lot of time. It was great in that sense. But we started to see, as we were having a lot of compaction issues, especially here in our system, because we use a lot of mulch. In the wintertime, it doesn't really freeze that deep to where if you get in when it's frozen, you don't cause any compaction. So if you only, even 3-4 inches of frozen ground, when you go in with a heavy skid steer, you're gonna kind of break through that and kind of compact a lot of the aggregates that are there, compact them together, smear them together to where you don't have good water infiltration. I noticed that a couple years ago that we were having issues. And so for one, we got rid of the problem, which was going over the beds with skid steer, or straddling. We weren't going on the beds, but straddling the beds with a skid steer. And then to remediate that, we got a broad fork, which helps to aerate the soil. And so we don't want to invert the soil layers. So how do you aerate the soil relatively quickly without inverting soil layers? And which, not that tilling's bad, tilling in the right context is good, but for our weed management, we feel it's important on our scale to not do that so we can manage weeds better. So the broad fork was the perfect tool for us in that situation. And right away when I broad forked, we were seeing good results. And that was this summer. That was in the middle of the summer they started broad forking, because some crops needed it in order to kind of stay alive, well, not necessarily stay alive, but to produce a yield of any sort. So it started 2 years ago, and broad forking isn't necessarily a long-term thing that you have to do. Once you start getting aeration down quickly, the biology in the soil will naturally keep that soil structure and aeration there. And I'm even noticing now, so I started up at the top here. A couple days ago, I did about 10 days. Today I've done 6 so far. And I'll go all the way down to our last bed, which is right here. But I'm noticing now, even broad forking, it's kind of hit or miss. Some spots I can still feel, you can feel it on the broad fork, you can feel you have to push harder to get the tines down in, to really lift and get some air passages down to that lower soil layer. But for the most part, the stuff is really responding well to it. So here, I haven't done this section yet. So I just started this bed, and you can see I'm still easily digging my hand down. And that's probably 6 inches down that I've dug, no problem. And you see the soil is just really crumbly and nice, which is good. So it's not something that I necessarily feel like I have to do, especially for most of the beds. I don't think it's necessary, but there still are pockets, and I could see it in the crops last year. And that's where observation in a garden, you can read all you want, but nothing in my eyes is as good as observation. Just spending, even if it's just before you do any task, just look for a few minutes, just see inconsistencies. If there's yellowing, if some crops are bigger than others, why is that? So this garden here is actually tiled. So in the past you would see a noticeable difference where the tile was. Those crops would be bigger, healthier, because the tile keeps air down deeper in the soil, and it allows for better drainage. But now, I would say last year, for the most part, you could not tell the difference from start to finish in a bed, except for the end. That end tends to be a little wetter. It kind of has a slight slope that way. And so that end especially needs forked still. But I'm still just going through the whole bed just to really create a lot of uniformity. But I foresee in the next year or two, maybe just doing spot broad forking after a crop if I notice compaction being an issue. But it's really coming along. It's amazing in a couple years if you give the energy into broad forking, which, yeah, it's hard work, but I just see that as a replacement to going to the gym. And it's definitely a rewarding work, especially every time you pull back, you'll see a handful of earthworms just kind of appear from the soil, which I guess is not really necessarily good to disturb that, but in the long run, what you're doing is really helping that biology out. So there is a little bit of sacrifice there for now for healthier soil in the future. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing today. And this is the nice thing about this, a broad fork. It might cost you a couple $100 to do it quicker. Yeah, you could get a tractor with like a chisel plow, or there's another attachment that goes really deep, subsoiler, I think it would, and that's pretty much what this is. This is a manual subsoiler, which a tractor and a subsoiler would do that, but you got thousands of dollars in investment to do that, especially if you're on a small scale, and a broad fork is doesn't run on fossil fuel, so you can do it no matter what the price of fuel is. So that's what I'm doing today, broad forking, and in preparation for the beginning of March. And so in a month our onions will be going in, so I want to get this done for that. And we'll be seeding carrots back here in end of March, beginning of April. So yeah, things are really gonna start going. Thanks for watching. Until next time, eat well and live well.